In 2003, Jörg Fassbender and an archaeological team, going off of clues in the Epic of Gilgamesh,
He was supposed to be a myth. Now, a tomb beneath the Euphrates suggests otherwise. Google's cutting-edge quantum AI has just analysed what could be the most important archaeological site in modern history, the possible tomb of Gilgamesh. But it's not what's inside that's shocking. It's what the AI is revealing before we've even opened it. Could the Epic of Gilgamesh, our oldest written story, turn out to be a historical account? Could quantum computing actually predict what's buried below? With ancient secrets meeting next-gen tech, what's being uncovered could rewrite the story of civilization itself. When rivers recede, secrets rise. In 2003, deep in the arid heart of Iraq, a team of German archaeologists stumbled across something they didn't expect. Using advanced magnetometer readings to scan beneath the soil near the ruins of ancient Uruk, they found a perfectly rectangular anomaly buried under what was once a riverbed. This wasn't just some old wall or forgotten foundation. The structure sat directly in the middle of the former path of the Euphrates River, a location that immediately raised questions. To anyone familiar with the Epic of Gilgamesh, this was more than a coincidence. According to the ancient text, the great king was buried beneath the river itself. The river was allegedly diverted so that his tomb could be built in the dry bed, then allowed to flow over it again, burying him forever beneath the lifeblood of Mesopotamia. This strange discovery generated interest, but unfortunately, it happened at the worst possible time. War had just erupted in Iraq. As the country spiraled into chaos, the site was closed off, and the discovery, potentially one of the most important archaeological finds of the century, was quietly filed away. For nearly 2 decades, the structure remained unexamined, a tantalizing question mark in the middle of the desert. But in recent years, the Euphrates has been changing. As climate change accelerates and rainfall patterns shift across the Middle East, the river has begun to dry up. What was once a constant flow of water is now shrinking, retreating, and revealing secrets it's kept hidden for thousands of years. Across Iraq and Syria, submerged ruins and forgotten cities have begun to emerge from the receding waters, stone by stone, artifact by artifact. Along with this come the rectangular structures enigmatically discovered in 2003. Water levels are lower than they have been in centuries, and with this new information has come more data. From new satellite images and ground sensors, the shape is visible as intact, but it is now clearer than ever. The structure is much more complex than previously thought, and it has companions, faint traces of roads, canals, and what may be a radial network of chambers are spreading out from the center hub. In short, all these possibilities put one chilling suggestion on the table. The tomb, which was once thought to have been said, metaphorically, in the Epic of Gilgamesh, may have been all along. It could be right where the old scribes said it was, beneath the Euphrates. The revived interest has done more than just resolve questions of the older archaeology, surprisingly shifting the focus to Google, and more specifically, the quantum division of Google. As the site started becoming more accessible and further data started coming in, engineers dealing with quantum artificial intelligence started posing the questions. What if we could analyze this ancient site without ever treating the topsoil? What if we could allow the AI to decode its secrets before we risk damaging it? So the ancient world meets futuristic technology. Because if the Euphrates is giving up Gilgamesh, we may never need to wait for a shovel to reveal the truth. We just might need an algorithm. And the machine for this imposition is not just an ordinary supercomputer, but the most powerful quantum processor on the planet. What happens when the oldest known king meets the newest known intelligence? That's where the next chapter begins. Google's quantum brain enters the past. Google's Sycamore processor isn't just a computer, it's a quantum leap in how we understand and process information. In 2019, it made headlines for achieving quantum supremacy, solving a problem in 200 seconds that would have taken the most powerful supercomputers thousands of years. But now, researchers and engineers are looking at a different kind of problem, decoding an ancient tomb buried beneath the Euphrates River without ever touching a single stone. Why would one of the world's most advanced artificial intelligences be applied to a 40,600-year-old mystery? Because quantum computing doesn't just make things faster, it makes the impossible possible. Traditional archaeology, while rich in its discoveries, is slow, invasive, and in some cases destructive. Every time you dig, you risk damaging something irreplaceable. But quantum computing changes that dynamic entirely. Quantum processors use qubits instead of traditional bits. These qubits can exist in multiple states at once, allowing them to perform calculations across thousands, sometimes millions, of variables simultaneously. That kind of processing power makes it ideal for interpreting the kinds of fragmented, noisy datasets that plague archaeological research. Imagine having thousands of magnetometer readings from different parts of an ancient city, each one slightly off due to changes in soil density, mineral content, or water damage. For a traditional computer, stitching together a coherent 3D model of what lies below the surface would take enormous time and effort. But for a quantum AI, it can sort, correlate, and reconstruct that data almost instantly, revealing underground architecture that no human eye has ever seen. For the suspected tomb of Gilgamesh, Google Quantum AI could use this information to create a pristine 3D image of the actual site for the first time. It will be able to locate where chambers lie, where walls are reinforced, and even how the structure came into being without disturbing even a grain of sand. It can run simulations to check whether Euphrates water would have flowed through certain corridors or over burial platforms, exactly as described in the Epic of Gilgamesh. The technology does not stop at this. The eye also simulates geological change over thousands of years, the river changing course, sediment building up, and erosion unearthing or concealing key features. It might even simulate the degradation of a tomb built in 2700 BCE under particular environmental conditions, providing useful insight for archaeologists as to where artifacts could be best preserved. What this whole thing brings about is revolutionary. It allows one to digitally excavate the tomb before actually and physically touching it. In simpler terms, it requires a thorough examination of where and how to dig. A quantum processor would simulate these examinations 1,000,000 times, giving the risk of disturbance the least value and the chance of preserving whatever may be in there the highest value. It is just like unsealing a time capsule without ever breaking its seal. And now, for the unbelievable part. If, indeed, this tomb houses a body, perhaps that of Gilgamesh himself, quantum AI might be able to reconstruct not merely the site, but the person himself. Provided there is DNA, the quantum-enhanced algorithms would help assemble damaged genetic material corresponding to a biological profile from broken sequences that normal sequencing methods would reject as junk. So what happens when an eye from the future encounters a king from the dawn of civilization? What if Gilgamesh lives a life not only through myth, but also through digital memory, mathematical precision, and computing that never sleeps? That might explain why this next possibility is causing the biggest stir of all. Because the tomb might not be alone. It might be just one piece of a buried city, and a legend much bigger than we imagined. Is this Gilgamesh's lost underworld? What if the tomb isn't just a tomb? What if it's part of something much bigger? An entire subterranean complex that mirrors the most mysterious chapter of the Epic of Gilgamesh? That's exactly what some researchers now believe. And if they're right, this isn't just an archaeological site. It's the blueprint of Gilgamesh's mythical journey into the underworld, now reimagined as a real place hidden beneath the Euphrates. It began with more than just one structure. In 2003, when Dr. Jörg Fassbinder and his German archaeological team used magnetometers to scan the area around ancient Uruk, they weren't just looking for a single tomb. What they found instead was something resembling the foundations of a city. Buried roads, canal systems, plots of land, and aligned architectural outlines suggested a lost urban grid. The Euphrates, once redirected in ancient times, had preserved something vast beneath its shifting bed. At the center of this grid was the rectangular anomaly, many believed to be the final resting place of Gilgamesh. But now, attention is shifting to what surrounds it. Could the adjacent structures be more than urban ruins? Could they be symbolic or literal representations of what the Sumerians believed the afterlife to look like? The Epic of Gilgamesh describes the underworld in haunting detail, a shadowy domain where the dead dwell, entered through gates and guarded by creatures and spirits. Scholars have long debated whether these descriptions were metaphorical or drawn from real ceremonial architecture, but the 2003 magnetometer readings give this old myth startling new relevance. Some patterns around the tomb resemble chambers or processionary paths. Others look like ritual courtyards or underground passageways. To live buried alive by the river, then that river perhaps could be considered the life stream of the gods, which means that its tomb should never have been planned for isolation. It was one such geography meant to bond one world with another. Aligns with the Sumerian religious beliefs because, as for those Sumerian burial practices, they tended to be complex and created to mimic the order of the cosmos. Here is once again where quantum artificial intelligence comes into play. By combining all this data with ancient Sumerian texts and architectural patterns, a quantum system could construct a picture of how this entire underground complex might have looked, analyzing all sensor data from magnetometry to ground-penetrating radar and satellite scans. Imagine not just a single burial chamber, but really a city of the dead, with its walls, gates, canals, and temples all encoded in the soil, just waiting for a processor smart enough to see the whole picture. Beyond that, it may seem that we are viewing the tomb of only Gilgamesh. Let us say a royal necropolis used for generations of kings or high priests. Or perhaps it is a physical reflection of the mythological journey depicted in the epic. If that is the case, then the entire site is not simply a tomb, it is a map of Sumerian cosmology, an ancient visual narrative sculpted into earth and stone. And if this is the underworld from the epic reel, buried and now being uncovered digitally, what else could lie hidden there? Artifacts, scrolls, treasures, and even preserved human remains might still be within its unbroken walls. Just the thought of digitally exploring this possible underworld without disturbing it physically is nothing short of surreal. What if it holds biological proof that Gilgamesh was more than a man? What if the real secret lies within the body itself, preserved for thousands of years and waiting to be decoded? DNA from the first great king. It sounds like science fiction. The remains of an ancient king sealed beneath a riverbed for over 4,000 years, perfectly preserved in an oxygen-starved sarcophagus. And now, his DNA on the verge of being decoded by one of the most powerful artificial intelligences ever created. But this isn't fiction anymore. With Google's quantum AI involved, the impossible starts to look eerily possible. Let's start with what we know. Ancient DNA extraction isn't a fantasy. In recent years, scientists have successfully sequenced genomes from Neanderthals, Siberian mammoths, and even Egyptian mummies. But those discoveries came from more favorable environments: cool caves, dry deserts, or sealed tombs. The Euphrates riverbed, on the other hand, presents a brutal preservation challenge. Moisture, time, and shifting sediments are usually the death sentence for organic material. So why do experts think DNA might still be recoverable from this suspected Gilgamesh tomb? Because of the burial's unique nature. According to the Epic of Gilgamesh, his body was sealed beneath the Euphrates after the river was diverted, allowing a tomb to be built in its dry bed before the waters were released to flow back over it. That kind of sealed, submerged environment, while risky, might also have shielded the tomb from oxygen and bacterial decay, two of the main enemies of DNA preservation. Additionally, ancient Sumerians were known to use oils, resins, and possibly even bitumen in their burial practices, especially for elites. These substances have preservative qualities that could have helped shield any remains from environmental degradation. If Gilgamesh really was buried in such a way, it's not out of the question that traces of his bones, hair, or even teeth could still exist in recoverable form. This is the kind of time when the quantum computer becomes revolutionary. Even for DNA that has been significantly degraded, quantum AI might theoretically reconstruct the missing genetic sequences. Conventional computers hit a wall with corrupted or partial DNA. They require processing base pair after base pair, slowly making assumptions one at a time. But quantum AI, it can simultaneously simulate millions of possible genetic reconstructions and test for the most statistically probable sequence in seconds. Such ability might lift a genetic profile out of almost nothing, a handful of scraps from decomposed organic matter, and if successful, we wouldn't just be talking about any ancient individual, we would be looking at the genome of one of the very first names in human history. Gilgamesh is not merely mythical, he is included in the Sumerian king list, ruled Uruk about 2700 BCE, and could possibly be the first historic attested monarch. Now, picture if all one could reconstruct from those fragments would be the genealogy and physical features of his personality. Was he as tall as the legends claim? Was he sharing any markers with what we would now call modern Mesopotamian populations? Could his DNA actually speak of some peculiarities? A sort of genetic anomaly that gave rise to stories of his semi-divine character? This is an astounding approach. If ever his remains were traced and sequenced, it would mean figuring out the oldest royal genome, the onset of a new era in bioarchaeology. History reconstructed not just from stones and texts, but from genetic memory. So, what will take place next? The genetic profile will be the next step to compare the remains found from other Sumerian royal tombs, or even for lineage tracing through time. It is sensible that his descendants might still be around, walking today. That would be testable. Anomalous revelations are the very big question. A health trait, perhaps a mutation, or just something in support of the ancient claims of his being 2/3 divine. We have laughed off all such claims as poetic exaggerations, but if there is just one anomaly that sustains that deeper meaning, history as we know it might shatter. Perhaps the world's primordial legendary king did more than just relate legends. He may have fixed the bloodline into an earthenware vessel, which lay there for the next 40,600 years, for a machine worthy of resurrecting it. And while DNA might reveal the man, another ancient mystery may help us finally understand the myth. Because just outside the tomb lies an entire web of tablets, thousands of cuneiform records that haven't been translated. What if the real prophecy is written there? Gilgamesh's tomb. Trap or message? For centuries, Gilgamesh's tomb was thought to be a myth. But what if it's not only real, but a warning, as quantum computing drives a new era in archaeology? The recent discovery beneath the Euphrates River may be more than a breakthrough. It might be a test set thousands of years ago. Ancient texts offer unsettling clues. Chinese historian Sima Qian described booby-trapped royal tombs, while Mesopotamian cuneiform fragments speak of burial chambers sealed with the blood of the earth and guarded by the silent breath of the gods. Long dismissed as poetic metaphors, these phrases now seem eerily literal. Recent findings match these ancient descriptions. The structure under the riverbed aligns with the textual accounts, and geochemical surveys show dangerously high mercury levels that can't be explained by natural sources. This echoes a passage in the Epic of Gilgamesh, which describes mercury rivers inside the tomb. Once considered symbolic, it may have been a literal and lethal defense. In ancient times, mercury symbolized both power and death. In a sealed tomb, it could create a deadly atmosphere, deterring or slaying intruders. Combined with potential mechanical traps, like the pressure-triggered crossbows known from Chinese tombs, the site may have been engineered to repel intruders, not honor the dead. Ultimately, it raises a fundamental question. Should we open it up? Such decisions were made in history by archaeologists or conquerors. But now, we have a new alternative, quantum AI. It can look inside without moving anything. Through quantum sensors and AI analyses, we can put together spaces buried at unbelievable detail and even interpret cuneiform texts to state what must be inside. This new field of quantum archaeology will reorganize the ways that we approach the past. It puts forward the possibility of a non-invasive exegesis of history, as some of the oldest questions are answered without ever moving a stone. But the proposals are heavier. What if the tomb of Gilgamesh is only one among many? What if an entire network of similar tombs lies under Mesopotamia, forming a ceremonial landscape meant not to celebrate the dead, but rather to caution the living? The new power brings on new responsibility. If entry into these tombs was against their design, any disturbances may indeed be contrary to those motivations. If the actual design was for communication through time, obscurity and danger may serve to stop unwelcome attention. The site of Gilgamesh's tomb might have more meaning than the site itself. Perhaps the last word is not inside the tomb, but belongs to the technology that allows us to see it from afar. But one matter remains: an indecipherable network of ancient texts starting to be decoded with the help of quantum tools. Perhaps they hold the last chapter of Gilgamesh's tale, not intended for the ancients, but for us. As ancient rivers dry and technology awakens the past, we may be standing at the edge of a discovery that reshapes history itself. What if Gilgamesh never truly died? He was just waiting for the right technology to tell his story. Like, comment, and subscribe if you want more stories where ancient secrets meet quantum revelations. And let us know, what lost mystery should quantum archaeology explore next? Click the next video. We're just getting started.